how we came to be happy again.
Hey, vinyl community and others that might be watching. Elliot Cruz here, Lazy Dogs Records, and a bit of a departure today from my usual videos. First, what do we listen to in the background? From 1980, David Grisman Quintet, 80, featuring David Grisman, of course, on the mandolin, uh, Darrell Anger on violin, Mike Marshall doing mandolins and guitar, Mark O'Connor doing violin and guitar, and Rob Washerman on the bass. Excellent dog music right there, as he liked to refer to it, David Crispin. And but today I'm not going to talk about an album or artist, musical artist. I'm going to talk about a book. Now, something I've observed in my years experience, I guess, many years of experience, is that art, be it music, books, uh, paintings, sculptures, whatever, are often manipulated and used for short-term political goals, and that upsets me. Whether it's coming from the far left or the far right or anywhere else, I think it's cheap shot, misuse. Uh, I think it's misguided. So the book in question is Beloved or Beloved, whichever way you want to pronounce that, by Toni Morrison, a 1987 novel written by Toni Morrison. And since it was written, it has become a whipping boy for political means. It's become a book that people have tried to get banned in various places, tried to get censored, limited availability, used in political ads as a dog whistle, if you will, for certain things. And the latest, this has been happening, since soon after the book was written and became popular. The latest example is in the Virginia governor's race when this book was brought up once again uh, as some sort of evil content that is poisoning the minds of the youth of Virginia, and take it from there. Uh, Critical race theory gets thrown in there. The problem is very few people know what critical race theory is. Those that utilize it for political means are throwing it about with no real understanding, or if they do understand, for malicious means, they are misrepresenting it. Uh, all critical race theory is something that's used in basically in law schools to discuss the and try to find commonality or correlation between events in the present as they relate to things that happened in the past related to race. That's all it is. It's not used in the public schools. I don't want to harp on that too much. I'm just saying people that throw that term out there, critical race theory, and demand this book be removed and things like that, they're playing political games. That's all it boils down to. And I'm not gonna play on the other hand over here. I'm just talking about this right now. Okay, so there's room for that in another discussion. But anyway, how many people that are so upset about this book, or use this book as their symbol for being upset about something going on in schools, or something being taught or something like that? How many of them actually read the book? How many actually read the book? Well, I promise you, very few did. So I said, well, doggone it. I was reading about this and everything. I said, doggone it. I'm going to go get the book. I'm going to go read it. And then I'm going to do this video. So the, the premise, from what I can tell, of why this is so bad is that it involves uh, the antebellum period, the American Civil War, and the Reconstruction period. Uh, the events occurred during that time, and they think that children should not read about those events in any type of detail. This book is a novel about three generations of a family, and it tells about their lives in a way it's surreal. The book is not written as an historical novel, first of all. The book is simply telling the story of three generations of a family. The family is African American family that during a portion of the story is enslaved, and during the rest of the story they are free blacks living in slavery, mainly in Kentucky, gaining their freedom through a couple of different means. Uh, Before the war, the American Civil War, and living as free blacks in Cincinnati in the latter period that the book covers. It does not move chronologically in telling the story. The story is told through the eyes of several characters, and it goes back and forth in time. It also goes back and forth between fantasy and reality, and it's very well written. Okay. This book's not a book that you would say, if I want to learn more about how slaves were treated or how the freedmen were treated during Reconstruction, this is not the book you're going to read. That's not what the purpose of this book is. And that's not what this is. This is a novel about the experiences of a few main characters. All the main characters are female. There are a couple of secondary characters, and I guess Paul D might be considered a main character. So maybe one male character, somewhat of a main character, but basically they're secondary to Denver, her mother, Seti, uh, and her mother, Seti's mother-in-law, and it tells a story of, sadly, it's a story about how harmed we can be by events of our lives, how it can ruin people's lives, and how people deal with pain and mental anguish, and the repercussions of pain inflicted on others down the road. That's what it's about. I don't want to reveal the plot. I don't want to tell you the story of it, but that's what this book is about. And as I say, it moves from delusions one or more characters may be having of reality uh, into reality, and sometimes you wonder, is this just a delusional thought, or is this the reality of what is taking place? And I think that's part of the beauty of the book. It's a very, very good book. I'm going to read you a couple of passages, and this is actually one of the happier passages. A lot of sorrow, a lot of sadness in this book. but I'll just begin here. Half an hour later, when they reached the city's edge, Seti and Paul D resumed catching and snatching each other's fingers, stealing quick pats on the behind, joyfully embarrassed to be that grown up and that young at the same time. Resolve, he thought, that was all it took, and no motherless gal was going to break it up. No lazy, stray pup of a woman could turn him around, make him doubt himself, wonder, plead, or confess. Convinced of it, that he could do it, he threw his arms around Seti's shoulders and squeezed. She let her head touch his chest, and since the moment was valuable to both of them, they stopped and stood that way, not breathing, not even caring if a passerby passed them by. The winter light was low. Seti closed her eyes. Paul D looked at the black trees lining the roadside, their defending arms raising against attack. Softly, suddenly, it began to snow, like a present come down from the sky. Seti opened her eyes to it and said, "Mercy." And it seemed to Paul D that it was a little mercy, something given to them on purpose to mark what they were feeling so they would remember it later on when they needed to. Here's a passage I'll read for you from the first third of the book. Like a faint smell of burning that disappears when the fire is cut off or the window opened for a breeze. The suspicion that the girl's touch was exactly like the baby's ghost dissipated. It was only a tiny disturbance anyway, not strong enough to divert her from the ambition welling in her now. She wanted Paul D. No matter what he told and knew, she wanted him in her life. More than commemorating Holly, that is what she had come to the clearing to figure out. And now it was figured. Trust and rememory. Yes, the way she believed it could be when he cradled her before the cooking stove. The weight and angle of him, the true to life beard hair on him, arched back, educated hands. He waited, his waiting eyes and awful human power, the mind of him that knew her own. Her story was bearable because it was his as well, to tell, to refine, and tell again. The things neither knew about the other, the things neither had word shapes for. Well, it would come in time. Whether they led him off to sucking iron, the perfect death of her crawling already, baby. What's the rub with this book? Okay, it describes events that slaves may have very well experienced during their enslavement. It describes events that freedmen may well have experienced during the Reconstruction period. What you expect from a novel about three generations of African Americans in the mid 1500s? What else would you expect to read about? Telling a fictional story uh, at a period in time, and that's what it's telling. If in doing so, it makes others more aware of our history, you can't find anything wrong with that. Uh, you can't say they're making all whites evil in this book. I was actually surprised. She has several sympathetic white white characters in the book, although they don't play a major role. They're minor characters, but it's not a simplistic story at all. If anything, it's an extremely complex story. of pain and suffering and how we deal with it, and how it affects ourselves and those around us for generations in many cases. So this is, there's nothing wrong with this book. There's nothing to cause anyone to be in an uproar by this book. So if anybody was trying to claim there's sexual content that's inappropriate here, it's not detailed and it's not explicit, and it's very not a very major part of the story at all, and it's not something that would be inappropriate. This book, the thing is, high school kids, for instance, when would this book be appropriate in a high school setting? Probably in an AP English class. I wouldn't use it in an AP history class. I don't think that this would, serve the purpose very well of teaching about the historical events and drawing any kind of parallels or conclusions or enlightening you significantly, somewhat, but not significantly. So there's nothing shocking in this book. It tells the story of 3 generations of African Americans in the middle 1800s, at a time of upheaval in our country, when lives were torn apart. It tells the story of people, some of which had been slaves, some of which were first generation removed from slavery, and it wasn't an easy life, obviously, and there was a lot of bad things that happened for slaves and the newly freed people in the Reconstruction period. So there's no reason to feel like you got to ban this book, folks. When they start trying to ban books, that's when there's an ulterior motive involved in what they're doing. People reading this on their own, teenagers reading this on their own, I don't see any real problem. Remember, folks, art is for us to both appreciate and be challenged by. And that's what this is. This is a work of art. Watch out when people try to ban works of art. Be careful. Watch out when people try to use works of art, be it music or books or sculpture or whatever, to promote an agenda, whatever that agenda may be. So I'd urge everybody to go to your public library, check this book out, and give it a read. Toni Morrison, Beloved, a novel. Okay? Everybody take care, and remember, be kind to your neighbor, because guess what, folks? We're all neighbors.
Again, back to the river again. It is a river of light. It is a river of light.